Yo and hello, welcome to another episode of the League of Fantasy Legends podcast. I am Pistons Wish. I am joined as always by FairstBiscut. Biscuit, I can see you for the first time.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Well, yeah, I'm glad to be here.
How are we? We are streaming this live on Twitch for the first time. So again, we went through this with the draft a little bit on Thursday. Bear with us as we kind of get used to doing this live on camera. Again, we can see, you can see it on the screen, and if you're listening, the social medias, this is the best place to talk to us. Twitter, it's at LFLPod, or join the Discord channel. That is the place to talk all kinds of stuff. We've got leagues forming. I believe, Biscuit, you're starting one up today, trying to get a kind of a last minute for people who waited too long. Got always also discussion. We had some good discussion on, how we're going to tier the, mid laners, after the top two. How does that change, your draft strategy? So also always good stuff going on in the Discord.
Yeah, just real quick. Big shout out to everybody who has joined the Discord over like the last even month. I've seen like drastic increase in numbers. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Definitely getting people more involved. I see a lot more conversation going. Obviously we're getting ready to start the split up. So again, just thanks everybody for joining us. It means a lot to both Piston and I. So looking forward to having a really good split. And as far as the other league that we're going to be putting together, you'll probably see a link in there either later tonight or if you're watching live or sometime Sunday. And looking to probably do the draft the night before the split starts. So looking at probably Wednesday. And you'll obviously see all the details then, within the Discord.
Yeah. And thanks also to anyone who tuned in to our draft we did on Thursday night for the Super League. It was a cool event. We ended up having 22 simultaneous viewers was the max. That's massive for us. So a huge thank you to everyone who tuned in. And I want to start off today's episode just by kind of looking through that draft. Obviously, we're going to be talking through that league a good bit. So I'm going to pull up the draft here so we can see it. And there were some surprises, a couple things that didn't go the way that we would have expected as the self-proclaimed resident experts of fantasy LCS. I want to know what your reaction was when Harry went 1-1.
Definitely a bold move, right?
That's one way to say it.
Yeah, I can't say I would agree, but if you're a diehard Harry fan, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and of course, 1-1 was Talkative Trees. He hosts the Blue Gold podcast, a Team Liquid-centric podcast. His first three picks, Harry, Jan, Piosik. So true to the name of his podcast, he went all in. Second overall was Tenacity. And full disclosure, the motivation behind the Tenacity pick is that he's cute. And you know what? Everyone has their fantasy strategies, and that is one of them. That is one I'm not quite familiar with, but,
definitely learned on the fly that night.
When I was in college, I put together a March Madness bracket pool. I spread it to 50 or 60 of my friends, $5 entry, and I consider myself like a college basketball fan. Like, I watched a lot of games. You watch a lot of college basketball?
I would say I'm a Florida fan. Kind of jumped on the bandwagon when they went back-to-back. So I followed them from afar, I guess you would say.
Okay, you're a Joakim Noah fan then?
Yeah, him and Al Horford was on that team, and Corey Brewer.
Oh yeah, Corey Brewer.
Yeah. I'm sure they had a couple other guys, but those are the main three that I remember.
Right. My freshman year of college, I gave it to my girlfriend, and she picked literally based on mascots. She said, "Which mascot is this team?" She did the whole thing. She won the pool out of 60 people.
That's amazing.
Because it was the year that Connecticut won it as a 3 seed.
Okay,
and they're the Huskies, and Huskies are cute. And so listen, do your thing. Delfino's probably going to beat us all with the Tenacity Busio cutest roster of all time.
That is fantastic.
We had the 4 spot, and we went with Berserker. So Berserker at 1-4, he's pretty much unanimously ranked 1-1 by everyone except for me. And so Biscuit and I arm wrestled, and I lost. So Berserker was the pick at 1-4. Any other things you kind of want to touch on? Weird things in the draft?
Again, for full disclosure, I think Berserker is arguably the number 1 pick overall, not only at the position, but just speaking of double, but taking a look at how things went in our draft, if I would have known Double Lift would have been there in the third round, like if you would have came to me prior and be like, hey, I got the inside scoop, he's going to be there in round 3, I would have been like, we're going to change some stuff up here because, I mean, I'm not as high on Double Lift as I am Berserker, but that's an incredible value pick, I feel like, at that spot.
Yeah, it really is. A couple other like interesting things. So we had Gordo on. Gordo's the play-by-play guy. He's an amateur fan caster. He hosts the Salt Mine podcast if you're a fan of the amateur scene, which started today. And I heard there were some good games in there. He went FlyQuest heavy. He took Spica over Inspired. That's another bold move. As someone put on there, said, is Spica over Inspired? That's a take. Like, yeah, that's a take. What do you think? I mean, that's wild, right?
I mean, I guess it really depends on what your angle is. I would absolutely not take that just from a security or value pick, if that makes sense. I would definitely take Inspired every time. But if you take a look at like the playoffs are actually 5 games because there's a super week in the final, like week 8. So within those 5 games, I don't remember exactly who they play, but I know FlyQuest plays what I would consider the bottom 3 teams of the league, and Immortals, TSM, and Golden Guardians. I actually think they have, they definitely have 2 of those 3 in the final week, right? Like the 8th week. So, I mean, if you can just, survive the season and make the playoffs with, 1 or 2 FlyQuest players on your team, obviously it would depend on the rest of your roster, but I would think you would have a solid chance considering, you did make the playoffs, plus you have those FlyQuest players that you could win it all. I would think you'd be potentially a favorite.
Absolutely. And, he said that he didn't even take that in mind. He just had Spica number 4 as the number 4 player on his board. And he was someone who made his own board. So he is certainly try-harding. He's got a great squad, to be honest. But I thought Spica over Inspired was kind of crazy. I think that's about all I really want to touch on, except for maybe which team we like the best outside of ours. Ours is obviously the best, if you can see here on your screen. For those listening, Berserker in the first round, Someday in the second round. And then Vulcan in the third round. So we got our top-rated bot laner, top laner, and support in our first 3 rounds. And I know when Vulcan was available, you might have been literally jumping for sure.
I couldn't believe it. I know we talked about it in the Discord after the fact that I still couldn't believe it, even an hour or so after the fact, as we were going through it. But I mean, no, like if anybody, listening or is only seeing the draft board for the first time here live, I mean, the way I look at this is, we came out with what I consider the number 1 player at 3 different positions, which I just think is a win in its own right for any draft, regardless of how many people. And then we also, again, one of the rules I like to stick with is not taking any of those players from the bottom 3 teams, which I already mentioned. And obviously you see here we got contracts and Jensen. So following those two things, I think we have one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, Jensen fell to the 5th round, which is insane. I mean, we were happy about it. Palafox went over Jensen. Mid laners, there were, if I'm looking at it, I didn't even realize this till right now. 5 of the first 9 picks for mid laners. And then Bjergsen went 2-1, and then the next mid laner wasn't until 4-7. So it was another. How many picks is that? That's if you said 5, 6, 7. Oh, in between. It's like it's like 22 picks between mid laners. It's insane. So everybody dropped, and we were able to get Jensen at 5-4, which I think, and funnily enough, I mean, I put him as my player to avoid. Jensen,
he ends up on our team. So.
Yeah, he ended up on the team, but I'm not mad about it. At 5-4, I love it. I want to avoid Jensen in the second round. In the 5th round, I love it. Yeah, and just to wrap things up here, I mean, again, if this is the first time you're seeing this draft board or, really any mock draft, definitely maybe take this as an example, right? Because as we already kind of touched on, a lot of mid laners already went. So maybe if you haven't drafted yet and you see a similar scenario, whether that be mid laners or a different position, you want to be able to make sure you get perhaps like whatever better players at other positions are there, because you can wait on picking, that position that's already been heavily drafted out of. Yeah, exactly. Usually it's bot laners we see kind of run early, but in this draft it was mid laners. Right. So just a real quick peek at the schedule. We've got it right here. We've got Delfino in the first round, so we'll be facing the Tenacity second overall. Yeah, hopefully we'll get a win and then another win and then take down this whole league.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm sure we'll hear from somebody soon enough on Twitter or some other platform.
Absolutely. I'm looking here. David, I can't say his last name. David S. He does more media stuff. And Gordo, who we already talked about, face each other in the first week. They were the ones doing the most trash talking. So I want to see a little trash talk, see how that one ends up. All right, we'll move on into week 1. What do you think? We're finally here. We made it.
I know it's been a long haul. I appreciate everybody who's followed us over, not only ramping up, but over the very long off season. As it seemed, it just kept continuing. And then obviously we try to make the best content as we can with really, not much to work with outside of rumors and, roster updates, which is always fun to speculate, but obviously it doesn't hit too hard on, fantasy wise, especially with newer players who we're really not familiar with and obviously have to study up on. But I'm very thankful that the season is finally here. And I'm looking forward to get into it.
Yeah, I love Worlds. I really do. But something about just like the regular season and starting just like the grind of a full
right.
split.
Definitely.
So let's get into it. I've got a lot of rosters. I've got the schedule here. Full disclosure, we were 10 minutes late getting on here because as we were talking right before going on to record, I realized that I had the wrong schedule. Google messed me up here. I was looking at Vegas odds and everything, and it just I don't know, it wasn't right.
I hope we didn't place any bets. That would be bad.
I didn't. Yeah, no, I have no idea what happened. But so I had to kind of redo my rankings, redo some of the stuff. But we are here. This is the schedule. First game of the whole split is an absolute banger. The Boomers of 100 Thieves, the Zoomers of Cloud9. What do you like?
This is a massive opening game. I mean, I don't know how long you've been watching just LCS, but I think this might be the
time.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is. I'm sure it's longer than even I have, but I think this might be the most parity ever in the league. So you see bangers like this, and then you just go down the line, and we'll get into it, right? But there's just banger after banger with some of these teams that or I shouldn't say some, but I would say the majority have a shot of potentially making a run if they catch fire at the right time per se. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. But just taking a look here again, 100 Thieves versus Cloud9. You did mention Boomers versus Zoomers. I mean, 100 Thieves coming in with both Busio and Tenacity. Yeah, they've been around for some time, but never really had their chance yet, at least. I don't know. I mean, you would think with the veterans and the Hall of Famers, I would consider them, and Bjerg and Double Lift, that they would be ready to go. But I think Cloud9 has more, and you'll hear me say it throughout the entire split and beyond, has more cohesion coming into this first game. So I think I got to give the edge to Cloud9 in the first game.
Yeah, I like 100 Thieves. And I just, something about Cloud9, it feels like they always, I was going to say they start slow. No, they always start fast. I just don't like Cloud9 that much. I'm going to be honest with you. I like 100 Thieves. Bjergsen and Double Lift just have always been so supreme in the LCS, especially when they've been together. Maybe we'll see that change for the first time, but I'm not going to be betting on it. I like 100 Thieves in this one.
Yeah.
And just to kind of touch on the schedule as a whole, it almost looks like they matched up who we thought would be pretty even in skill with the clear exception of Golden Guardians versus Evil Geniuses.
Right.
FlyQuest Team Liquid, we had those, I believe, 4-5 or 5-6.
Right.
Both teams, we had them pegged as the hardest ones to read.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the two biggest unknowns for sure.
Right. So that one will be awesome. CLG versus Dignitas. We had them, I think, at 6 and 7 in our power rankings.
Right.
Then TSM Immortals, I think we had 9-10. So a bunch of games that they should be close.
Yeah, I would say, if we're just looking at the first day here, all but one of these matchups should be fairly close. I think so.
Right. All right, Evil Geniuses, Golden Guardians. Anything to even say here?
This should be a blowout. It should be a repeat of last split, regardless of new faces and on what teams. I think this is a pretty quick game for Evil Geniuses.
Yeah. Week 1, so anything can happen, certainly. I'll be excited to see what happens in the mid lane. Jojo Pion, Gory. Jojo's gone on record and said that Gory's done well. And so we'll see what happens in the mid lane. Gory getting a little bit of hype behind him. We'll see if he can live up to it.
It's all mind game.
The glorious return of River.
Oh, yes.
To the LCS.
Can't wait.
Oh, yes. Game 3 is FlyQuest versus Team Liquid. We've got, I think this is almost a complete toss-up. FlyQuest getting a lot of hype in the dedicated fan section. Mark Z had him winning. We've seen Prince go 1 overall in a couple drafts.
Mm-hmm.
I like FlyQuest here. I think they're more talented across the board, but what do you like?
I mean, just to touch on some of the things that you had mentioned, right? We saw Prince going pretty high. Mark Z was high on them. I mean, I've heard, I think, more about Vikla than any other player coming into like just the start of my draft preparation for fantasy. As far as like Vikla being like potentially the best mid laner in the league, even. So yeah, I mean, we're going to find out right away because I think, like you already mentioned, these two teams are two of the teams, or I should say the two teams, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we think are the potential boom where they're just number one, I think potentially, or maybe not finishing quite where we thought they would, just because they don't get on the same page as fast enough, right? I do think, again, the more I looked into it, I think FlyQuest does have, I want to say like more of a potential. That's not to discredit Liquid at all. I think they're going to be able to, pull out quite a few wins that maybe we weren't expecting and finish higher in the standings potentially. But I think the ceiling for FlyQuest is just a little bit higher, and I would take them in this first game.
So we agree on FlyQuest here. Game 4, CLG versus Dignitas. CLG is the team that's probably getting the least talked about, which I guess makes sense when you run back the same 5 players. I like CLG. I think I'll probably be rooting for them, really above most. I'm excited to see what Contracts brings. I met Dokla when we were at Worlds, so excited to see what he can do as well. I'm taking CLG here. I know you love Jensen, though, and I know you love Dignitas.
Actually, real quick, I want to actually play devil's advocate. I'll take 30 seconds tops. Okay. I'm actually going to take Liquid. I'm taking Liquid over FlyQuest. And we'll get into this more once we get into like the fantasy aspect. But I'm actually going to take a Liquid for at least this matchup because I always preach cohesion. Harry and Jan have played together in Academy, and they're coming up. And FlyQuest doesn't have Ayla for this opening game. So that's why I'm going to lean towards Liquid. I think Prince might struggle a little bit just because, obviously he's getting used to win some. Not that he didn't play with him in scrims or whatever leading up to the start of the season. But I feel like Liquid's going to be more on the same page, at least for this game. So I'll leave it at that. Jumping into CLG and Dig. I mean, we're going to find out real quick what Dig is and is not, I feel like, in this game. Because if they're going to be, again, it's only one game and I don't want to put too much on it, but if they're going to be any kind of what we think they might be able to, I think they pull this one out. Yes, CLG is very, very seasoned, right? Because they're obviously running back the same roster. Would I be surprised if they won? No. Would I obviously like to see Dig win? Yeah. Do I think they actually have a chance to win this matchup for once since I started rewatching? Yeah, I think they do. So, again, this is kind of like, let's see what we're going to be working with this season. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm taking Dig in this matchup, but I think it can go either way.
Yeah, I mean, Dignitas can absolutely win this, especially with their new and improved roster. We got Jensen, we got Arma, we got Santorin. That top side of the map is formidable. I mean, I don't think they're going to get blown out by really any team in the league on that part of the map. The bot lane has obviously been our biggest question the whole time.
Right.
Last game, TSM versus Immortals. 9-10 in our rankings. We'll see. What do you like?
I mean, I get to go to bed early, right? So maybe check it out in the morning. But I would think we get a TSM win here. But with Neo on your team, I don't know. So, I mean, we'll really have to see.
You're such a hater.
I'm not a fan. I'll just admit I'm not a fan. So we'll see. What happens. I'm interested to see what some of the new faces do, like Boogie. I don't know if we got the right pronunciation yet, or if it's Bug Eye, which I'm fingers crossed it is. We'll see what they are all about in their first game. We get new.
I think we made an executive decision that we're going to call him Bug Eye regardless of what his name actually is.
I'm okay with that. Let's go with that.
There we go. Bug Eye.
Yeah, we get to see Bug Eye, and we also get to see Fleshy for Immortals, who ran through the Turkey League and is now over here. Best of luck to him. I'm hoping to see good things out of him. And yeah, I mean, I would take TSM, though, in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed. I wanted to see Balulu, who we talked about early on. It sounds like he will be starting. That wasn't something we had mentioned at first, but sounds like Balulu will be starting, but he's got visa issues like so many other players do.
Right.
And so as much as I think that hurts him long term, I wonder if a Blaze Olive isn't a better option for right now. I mean, obviously he's been around. He was with Golden Guardians last split. He's a veteran. I think this one will be close. I'll probably take TSM though.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think it'll definitely be close. And I do agree on the Blaze Olive take. I'm not a fan of Blaze Olive at all. I think he's the worst mid laner in the league, even worse than Balulu, who's not even over here yet. And that's just straight disrespect, and I'm okay with that. But no, I mean, Balulu played with Fleshy over in Turkey. They ran through that league. So, I mean, granted, there might be some kind of culture shock or, maybe something just doesn't work out on that end or behind the scenes that we may or may not see. And don't get me wrong, like Immortals just isn't the strongest roster. But, I mean, if I was going to build around whatever Immortals has currently, I would think it would be Balulu and Fleshy for sure.
So we'll get into Friday. We're going to get into rankings after this. So that's not why we haven't really talked about specific players. We'll do rankings right after we get through the matchups. First game of Friday, CLG versus Evil Geniuses. This was a matchup we saw some fireworks fly in the regular season last year. So remember the massive comeback from CLG. Do you give them a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, obviously, right, it's a much bigger challenge for EG than Golden Guardians is. So, we're going to find out what this new EG team is. I feel like during this game, I do think it should be Evil Geniuses. I don't want to say handedly, but I don't see them losing. And I guess at the same time, we'll see. Again, I don't think CLG will win, but I guess we'll see how much they've grown since last split. Again, running back everybody. You would think they'd be more prepared than, literally anybody, right? Because they have their entire squad back. So we'll see. Maybe CLG pulls it out, but I'm going to have to go Evil Geniuses.
Yeah. I think if there's a time for CLG to pick off some of the top teams, it's going to be here early. They should have, the advantage from a cohesion standpoint. Evil Geniuses, obviously the two new players, top lane, bot lane. I'm going to pick CLG.
Okay. I think it's a possibility.
Don't ask me again because I'll probably change my mind. Yeah. Next game, Golden Guardians versus C9. C9 is going to be pretty heavy favorites. Berserker is going to be top of a lot of people's lists this week up against Stixay. What do you think about this one?
Wherein I had Evil Geniuses at about a 99% to beat Golden Guardians, I would say Cloud9's probably like a 92%. We have seen Cloud9 just completely fall on their face in, I don't know necessarily this kind of matchup, but other matchups where it just looked like they should be a clear favorite. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just going to take the safe pick and go Cloud9. I'm just trying to think real quick. I don't think there's unless Gory would go off perhaps, I don't think there's even an argument to be made, I should say, for any player on Golden Guardians at any position that's better than any player on Cloud9.
Right. I agree. Yeah, Cloud9 pretty easy. Next game, Team Liquid versus TSM. Liquid, I really think they might struggle a little bit early on as they try to find their way. Then again, when you have Summit in the top lane and Piosik in the jungle, you could always just give Summit a carry and let him take over the entire game. Solo, obviously we like him. I think he's passable, but he's not Summit. So I could see that being a little bit troublesome for TSM. I'm taking Team Liquid. Who you got?
Yeah, I think again here, I think it makes sense to take Liquid. Basically all the points that you already mentioned. It might be closer than it should seem, perhaps. But again, both teams are kind of, they're somewhat new, or they do have new pieces, right? Especially Liquid to an extent here with like you already mentioned, the jungle and the top. But yeah, I think this is going to be closer than it probably should be. But I think Liquid wins it, and I'm not going to change my mind. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I think this might be the Summit game where he just kind of takes over. Obviously, Liquid has FlyQuest in the first match. I don't think Summit's going to run over Impact, but he might have a chance to do that against Solo. Then again, he kind of did that against everyone on when he was on Cloud9 in the spring. So
right,
he's maybe the player I'm most excited to watch this split, to be honest. Fourth game is 100 Thieves versus Immortals. I like 100 Thieves here big. Immortals, they started last year so badly. I just think 100 Thieves is going to be it. What do you think? You agree?
Wait, did you say Immortals started badly?
Last year?
Yeah, at what point did they become not bad?
They started badly, and then they continued to do badly.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. But
okay, let me rephrase that. Immortals was so bad last year that there we go.
Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, no, for 100 Thieves, I think this is the comeback game, right, from a potential loss in the first game. I think they just run through Immortals, and we see more of what we were probably expecting, or more of what we can probably expect to come in the rest of the split. So I think 100 Thieves is probably heavy favorites, in this game.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think 100 Thieves season may come down to, does Doublelift still have hands? And I think he does. He's not that old. He's younger than me, so he's not old. That's how that goes. All right, Dignitas, can they take FlyQuest? I know you're the dig guy, so you're the one who's got to...
So if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, I don't think they win. I don't know if I can't remember from 10 minutes ago, but I think if I had to bet my life on it, I would pick CLG over Dig, even though I think I just said I would take Dig. But
you did say you take Dig.
I did say I would take Dig?
You took Dig in that one.
Oh, son of a... Okay,
you can undo it. You can undo it if you want.
I don't want to be that guy. So I'll take Dig against CLG, and I think in this one, they might be able to pull one out, and the only reason I think they might be able to is because Winsome is there and not Ayla. Mm-hmm. I just don't have any faith in Ignar at this point in the season. Obviously, it hasn't even started yet, but I can only go off of what I've seen last split. Obviously, he's on a better team than he was, again, last split, but until I see it happen, I have no faith. So I think this is a game they could potentially win still, but I think FlyQuest should probably eat this one out.
Yeah, I like FlyQuest here too. Dignitas is a team that they made some signings. People thought they were going to be pretty good, but as I see power rankings, they've got everyone. I don't see anyone with them above 6th, which is kind of surprising. People love Jensen. I like Santorin a lot. Armits, obviously had some really good years, but I know FlyQuest is the pick here for sure. Let's talk rankings. I'm going to go ahead and pull mine up here. All right, so here are my rankings. I've got on top jungle, mid, ADC support. The way I did it, you can kind of see here, I kind of grouped the teams here by tier in my mind. Red being the hard matchups, yellow being the medium matchups, green being the easy ones, and did my rankings a good chunk according to that. I want to know who you've got tops. Is it EG players pretty much across the board?
So I have EG players, it looks like, in 3 of the 5 positions, yeah.
Okay, so who do you have otherwise?
So in support, I have Core JJ, and then at ADC, I have Berserker.
Okay, I like the Core JJ pick, especially if you think Team Liquid's got a good chance against FlyQuest. I said it during that draft. I think Core JJ is just going to live in the top lane. It's going to be a support summit more than support Jan this year, so sorry, Jan. That's why I've got you ranked so low pretty much across the board, preseason and now, for week 1. I do like Summit. Obviously, I have him here as number 2. Any players you have maybe higher than we would expect? For example, I've got Solo and Maple here pretty high. I've got Solo at 4, Maple at 5. I think TSM with a game they should win against Immortals and a game they could win against Team Liquid. When you compare that to the other 5 teams in the bottom 5, I think they've got a good chance to score pretty well this week. I think if you're rocking one of the bottom 3 teams in an 8-team league, I think it's worth a thought if you're in a drop. Maybe you like Gory, but this week they play EGC9. Maybe you drop Gory, you pick up Maple. I think that might be a better pick. I've got Gold Guardians across the bottom as well with that brutal schedule EGC9. It doesn't get much worse.
Right. Full disclaimer, we're going to have the stats page that I'm looking at that I put together up in the Discord. So if you're taking a look at that, by all means, always looking for feedback on it, how we can improve. But you'll find like picks and then obviously player stats and projections and whatnot. But if you're taking a look at this for week 1, at least from my perspective, the only information I really have to work off of is opinion at this point, as far as like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I took like my rankings and then kind of how, all right, I took my player rankings and my team rankings and came up with just some, again, quote unquote projections for this week. So take everything with a grain of salt. But I mean, like you mentioned, it's basically, the better teams at the very top, right? So Evil Geniuses, Cloud9. I do have quite a few Liquid players up there just because we don't know exactly how they're going to perform yet. Same thing with FlyQuest, right? So I think my first real jump out as I'm going through here is, I have, I have, Chime as potentially one of the better supports for the week. He's got Immortals, so we'll see how he stacks up against Fleshy. And then, he does have Core JJ in the second game, but he might be able to be one of the better picks for this week. I got quite a few of the Dig players, either ranked 5 or 6 at their position, so they are an option, I feel like, for this week for sure. But basically everything you already said, right? I have Golden Guardians players, would definitely avoid them this week. And really, there's like let's see who else I have. Actually, I'm looking at it, I have Golden Guardians ranked last at every position. So followed pretty closely by 4 out of the 5 Immortals players. So definitely want to stay away from those players for this week.
Yeah, I went Golden Guardians last across the board, Immortals second to last across the board. Although Immortals, probably not going to be many weeks you can start them at all.
Right.
That being said, I think they've got a chance against TSM. And so, if you have to, maybe you like Immortals over TSM. I think Immortals could be startable as one of those bottom 8 players. Golden Guardians, if you took any of these players, maybe you like Stixay, maybe you like Gory, I think that's fine for a good chunk of the season. But for week 1, I'd probably just drop them, to be honest. Just cut bait. Sorry, boys. I do like you, Gory, but I'll like you better next week.
Right, exactly. Agreed.
All right, so let's talk lock and fade of the week. This is how we end every episode. What are we sure that's going to happen? Who are we fading? I want to go ahead and throw it to you to start. What is your lock of the week this week?
Yeah, so my lock of the week...
You can't say Evil Geniuses.
Fair enough.
Too obvious.
That's fair. So my lock of the week, I only have one player in particular that definitely jumped off the board. Not saying that there's not other players that are going to score really high this week, but I think Core JJ is the absolute lock for this week. He's going against the FlyQuest team who doesn't have their starting support. As you mentioned, he's going to be up helping Summit perhaps most of the game, or most of both games perhaps. And then he follows up the Ayla-less FlyQuest with TSM, who I know I mentioned Chime as a potential start. I don't think they're really comparable, and I think Liquid just gets it done in both games. So I'm gonna go Core JJ as my lock of the week.
Yeah, I like that. I like Core JJ. He obviously had a pretty tough split last year, last summer. I really hope that the meta kind of shifts. If you've been watching any of the other leagues, you're seeing pretty much what we ended the summer with, which is Yuumi, Lulu, boring stuff. He's the best when he's got a go button, when he's the one who can engage more Leona, Nautilus. And so, I still think he's going to do good. He's a good enough player. He's been around long enough that he's going to be fine. But I'm just not sure that Core JJ's Heimerdinger is one that we're going to be really having engage a lot. So we'll see. I do like Core JJ a lot. I think my lock of the week this week is going to be the boomers, the GOATs, prove that they still have it. So I'm liking Bjergsen. I'm liking Double Lift this week, especially Bjergsen. You can see I've got here ranked above Jojo Pyun for week 1. I think Under Thieves will pull out that win against C9, and they can do it behind the back of Bjergsen. We see one of his all-time signature champions in the meta right now. That's Syndra. Syndra's really strong, and he's, if you've been following for a long time, you know how scary Bjergsen Syndra can be. I think he's going to have a great week. I'm picking Bjergsen as my lock of the week.
It's a solid pick.
Thank you. Fade of the week. Who are you just not really feeling this week?
Yeah, so as we already kind of touched on, you definitely want to stay away from Golden Guardians players and basically Immortals players as a whole for this week. But I'll try to think outside the box per se. Now that I take a look at real quick at your rankings, I think mine are pretty similar. But maybe CLG players. You would think they're going to be pretty solid, and they just might be, but you might want to consider an alternative depending on how things go against Dig. I would think they have a much tougher matchup in the second game against Evil Geniuses, where I don't think they'll score very well. But, I mean, they could still potentially stumble against Dig, I think, as well. Mm-hmm. So if you have another option that's not Immortals, not Golden Guardians, I'm sure that's really hard to find in really any league. So you might just have to bite the bullet on this one. But, I mean, if at all possible, and if you are able to somehow get a better option, might want to look at something other than CLG players for this week.
Yeah, across the board, I actually do have TSM ranked very slightly above CLG. Pretty much across the board, players got Solo a little bit above Dokla. Yeah, like I said, across the board. So I wouldn't hate if you're feeling a little down on CLG. Give them a little drop right before the game, hoping to pick them up after the week. Might not be worth the risk, though, for what's not a guaranteed reward. I'm going to fade FlyQuest because I think they're going to need a little bit of time to gel. I picked them over Team Liquid. I think it's a losable game for them. And Dignitas, I mean, they're one of the biggest wild cards. I'm not picking them to lose both of those games, but I think if you're expecting like a top 3 week from Prince or Vikla, I don't think it's going to happen this week. Obviously, Prince, coming from the LCK, he's been amazing. I think he will be top 3 this year. I didn't rank him there originally, but as I've heard more and talked more with people who are in the know, I think I am putting Prince higher for my season-long rankings, but not for week 1. I think it's going to take a little bit for that team to gel.
I think it's a bold pick, but I mean, I don't think it's crazy by any means.
Yeah, you got to go bold. I could tell you not to play Golden Guardians players, but what fun is that?
Yeah, right. And then Gory breaks out.
All right, man. I think that pretty much wraps us up. Anything to throw in before we close?
No, again, thanks to everybody who tuned into the live stream. We're looking to do this hopefully for every episode moving forward, as much as we can. And again, thanks for everybody who's joined the Discord. If you haven't already, please, by all means, feel free to do so. We're always looking to have conversations really about anything, fantasy related in there. And then last thing I have is, just be on the lookout for that link. I'm going to try to get it out as soon as I can. And we're looking to probably have that draft on the night before the season starts, or split starts, I should say, which is going to be on Wednesday. So if you have any questions in the meantime, you know where to find us.
Yep, both of our rankings we'll post in that Discord as well. This is on the screen. We'll post Biscuits to his inferior rankings. You'll want to see them as well compared to mine. That's going to wrap it up for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Pistons Wish and FairstBiscut, and we're signing off. Peace out.
See you guys.